Good evening, everyone. I am going to present tonight telling you about my still ongoing journey to become an Italian citizen. I like variety. I like options. In the last 18 years, I have worked for 19 different organizations, some of them pictured here. I have lived in 12 different homes, but I have finally, I think, found a place I want to live here in Asheville, and I've finally found a job that I will probably hold for longer than 18 months. But 2.5 years ago, I was still looking for options. And specifically, I was looking for options abroad. My fiance and I love to travel. We will go across the pond to Europe for 3 weeks or 3 months at a time. But there's so much to see over there, and we think the best way to do it is to live over there. There are lots of ways to do this. He can work from anywhere. The problem is, and I probably could, I've had enough jobs, I'm sure I could find something, but there's this little thing called the Schengen Agreement. If you are from a variety of countries, you can only spend 90 days out of 180 in the dark blue pictured countries here. That doesn't mean you can go 90 days to France and then hop to Italy and it resets. The clock does not reset when you go to another one of these countries. So if I go to France for 90 days, I have to then leave and can't come back for another 3 months. So there are some ways around this. The first way is to get a student visa. The problem is that I have plenty of degrees and I do not want another one. So I'm not going to do that. Now, language schools count, and you can get a student visa for going to a language school, but I would rather earn money while over there instead of spend it. The second way around this whole Schengen Agreement is to buy a house or invest in another country, except my fiance and I just bought this house 5 weeks ago, and I have zero desire to go through that process again, let alone in a country whose language I do not speak. So that's out. So the next option is to get a work visa. And I thought, well, this I can do. So I worked on getting my CELTA certificate, which is a certificate to teach English language to adults. And then I started teaching, I didn't start teaching, I started looking for a job to teach in Europe. The problem is there's something called the European Union. And for the European countries that are looking for English teachers, it's much easier to hire a Brit or an Irish person than it is to hire an American. I require working papers, they don't. So I got a little frustrated trying to find these jobs because all of them were saying in order to apply, you should have EU working papers. The more people I talked to, they said the easiest way, if you can, to get a job over there is to get an EU passport. And I said, oh, I can do that. Now, not everybody can get an EU passport. There's different rules for different countries. But if you happen to have an Italian ancestor who never became an American citizen, or who became one after your next ascendant was born, you can become an Italian citizen. So I set about to do this. My great-grandfather Luigi came over in 1909, and so I got his records. And the first thing I actually did was to apply to the Italian Consulate and make an appointment. That's because when I called in May of 2015, and I had read this online, May 2015 I called, their next available appointment, February 2017, which is great because I had 1.5 years to collect all the documentation that I needed. So I collected 14 birth, marriage, and death records from me on back to my great-grandfather. I had them all certified. I had them all translated to Italian, filled out a whole bunch of other paperwork, and went to my appointment with the Italian consulate in February and was not quite rejected, but was told I didn't have enough information. Specifically, I didn't have enough information proving that my ancestor never became an American citizen. I did have a letter from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. I also had a letter from Dutchess County, New York, which is where he lived most of his life, saying that neither of these organizations could find him on their records. And that, some people say that should have been enough, but it wasn't. So I cried, and then I came home, and I got back to work. So I found that my ancestor, Luigi, came across the Atlantic not once, but twice, the second time in 1913. And on his Ellis Island record, which I now have a certified copy of, he is listed as an alien, which means as of 1913, he was not an American citizen. A few years later, he married Anna Napoli. And there was a law when they got married that if you married an American, you automatically became one. But on the 1915 New York State Census, that A means that she was still an alien. And this was after they got married. So that would also help my case. Now, 3 years after Luigi and Anna married, he died. He was killed in a dynamite explosion. He was working to clear dynamite from a creek. The dynamite charge didn't go off. He went to fetch it. Somebody hit the button and it exploded. In those 3 years, he had 3 children. So this leaves his wife single with 3 kids. In the 1920 census, she is still listed as an alien, which for me shows that she never actually became an American, further proof, hopefully, that he never became an American. So with this information and a few other pieces of information that I've gathered, I'm going to submit this all to the Italian Consulate. Thankfully, I do not have to wait another 1.5 years. Since they approved all of my other records, I just need to mail in my application and cross my fingers and hope they say this is enough to prove that this guy never became an American and therefore I am an Italian. Now, I like being an American. I like all the freedoms it affords me. But thankfully, the US allows you to be a dual citizen. So I will have 2 passports. I'm not going to give up my American citizenship if this all goes through. So this whole process is wonderful because it definitely gives me options. But it also gives my family options. Now that I've been through all this legwork, my aunts, uncles, cousins, parents, siblings, nieces can all, some of which are pictured here, not all of them, they can all go through this process a lot easier because I have done so much of this legwork already, should they want the option to become Italian citizens. Thank you.